Hey guys, so it's finally here. The news is finally official despite a couple leaks here and there. The boot has dropped. And finally, in all its glory, here's going to be the trailer for Total War Warhammer. So I'm going to be cutting it apart into little pieces here, and people are excited. So you're having mixed reviews. Most of all, this trailer is pretty awesome, so it's exciting. But I'm going to slice and dice this, and we're going to take a look at it. So obviously, this is going to be our first official glance at Warhammer, and they're going to reveal a couple other tidbits. So the first one is that this is actually going to be a trilogy with two further standalone installments that they're going to be having coming after this. But CA wanted to make clear that this is not taking away from their historical titles, which are going to be developed by a separate team parallel. So you're going to have both of these differently. And CA was very adamant in saying again, over and over and over again, don't worry, we'll continue to make historical games. So rest assured that these are two separate paths, two separate games, two separate teams. First, before we go into the trailer, I wanted to show you where we are. So this is the world of Warhammer Fantasy, and the trailer says we're going to be in the old world. So that's basically on this map that looks very similar to the modern world. We're going to be in Europe as the old world. And then you can see all sorts of different places that the trilogy that they're saying will later probably expand to, so that you can bet your ass there's going to be a New World one, stuff like that. And then on Reddit, people were posting, so like an Explain Like I'm 5 backstory for Warhammer. You can go ahead and read through this. They basically say, if you think of the Empire as the Holy Roman Empire, the Kislev as the Mongol Russians, the Bretonnians as a feudal society, and the Dwarves, short, stout mountain folk, greenskins, and orcs, and they go on, and they kind of enumerate these. That's good. I recommend you pause and you read through this. Otherwise, I'm also going to link to other channels which do great in-depth expose on the various factions, and I have those two guys hopefully over so we can talk through this in the future, because definitely there's a lot of lore to get into. And what I really liked about this is this harkened back to the Medieval 2 faction trailer, or the overall trailer, where the priest came in and he opened the book, and then that's how they kind of showed the faction intro. So they're definitely trying to mirror that, which I really appreciated and I really liked. Anyways, here it's like basically they're under siege, and he's trying to like look in his book to see if there's maybe a spell that can stop the enemy. But basically they use this as an expose to look at the factions facing them. So the first faction that you're going to be dealing with is the Greenskins. So that's the orcs and goblins. And now CA is actually going to be doing this in a kind of a different way than they would usually. So they're going to be doing this with just 4 races to choose from. So Greenskins, Empire, Dwarves, and Vampire counts. Now that's very, very restricted. Of course, on the campaign map there'll be more, but what they said here, if we've decided to go deep rather than wide, so think of it kind of like Shogun 2, where the factions are more restricted, they're going deeper, but in this case, each faction is different. So you get the depth of Shogun 2, but the variety of any Total War game, because obviously orcs and goblins, men are going to be totally different. So CA is going to be fleshing out the depth. And then hopefully once they work out the kinks, then the next part in the trilogy will work on the harder units. A big part of Warhammer is also going to be the skilled leaders, so expect a lot of development on that front. And for instance here, I want to take a snapshot showing the leader maybe leading a warg, which is going to be a big assault from the Greenskins. And I wanted to talk a bit about the engine. They said on the forums that they're going to be using the next iteration of the Total War engine. It's still, I believe, Warscape, but it's going to be an updated version of the engine. So just keep in mind that they're going to be updating it, so it should run better, have better graphics, and all that stuff. So that's good to see. So visual enhancement is to be expected, especially if they're going to be handling all sorts of different types of character models and all that stuff. So expect the engine to be revamped and redone, but I think at its base it's still Warscape. However, don't quote me on that. I'm not exactly sure how this all works. But then here they fly out, and now you get to see a little bit of sense of scale of the battle themselves. So gigantic monsters, flying creatures, legendary heroes, storms of magical powers will take place on the battlefield. This is a totally different battlefield. Take a look at the bottom right. You have these giant characters like trolls, then you have flying mounts, and then you have either artillery or magic shells coming in, and the city itself is going to be obviously fantasy, so you have different tiers, and I'm really looking forward to the dynamics of that, because they can stretch the realism. One of the sad things that I did remark is that they commented that, oh, look, this would be great for Lord of the Rings mod. They said, however, they have no plans to support modding for Total War Warhammer. They said in part that's because they're partnered with Games Workshop, so there's a little bit of legal stuff there. So we'll have to see. That doesn't mean modders can't do tweaks to the game, but they don't officially intend to support it. So that means it's going to be very hard if anyone wants to do a proper Lord of the Rings mod in Warhammer. It seems like we won't really be able to do that. But again, stay tuned for more. We'll have to wait on that. And then the priest continues to consult his books, and the next faction that they're going to go over is the Vampire Counts, so they're looking very, very sweet. Another mount right there flying overhead in another battle. Look at the armor and all the details on that, and then Will here confirms that there will be flying units that you can control, so obviously that's awesome. It just makes me wonder exactly how you're going to control them. Obviously they fly, so do they just stand off like 50 feet above the ground, and then, if they fly over a building, then they are 50 feet above the building, so they probably stay on like a plane, but I'm not sure. And then can you tell them to land? Can they go on land and then fight like big giant elephant type units that knock you over? Will they also have magical abilities, breathe fire? I'm really interested to see gameplay, and this is, of all the Total Wars, the one you want to see the gameplay for, because that is very, very a huge question, basically, and it's very, very important how they tackle some of these elements and how they're going to have these play out. Dragons and flying creatures has never been done before, so I'm kind of glad, in one sense, that they are making this a trilogy. It means that in the first one, they can work out all the gimmicks of these new features, and then in the second one come back with the refined, they learn from their past mistakes, and hopefully in the second one they'll have all the features nailed down. Come Warhammer 3, they'll have, be able to build off working features, so I think that's cool. And then the last one here, or the third faction they're going to reveal, is the Dwarves, and they have access to cannons and firepower, and I just wanted to pause this as they're here. Look at their little barricade there, but look at what they're shooting at. Most importantly, it's going to be little goblins riding spiders. So when you talk about variety in this game, you're definitely going to have tons of it. I mean, that is really awesome. Look at all the little riders. It's almost like the riders on an elephant, but of course it's a spider. So that'll knock you over. Then you have a bunch of little goblins who can fire javelins, arrows. Very excited to see how this plays out. And then look at where they're fighting. That's going to be inside a cave or a vault or something. So maybe battles will take place under the mountains as well. Although, of course, this is a trailer, so it doesn't really show gameplay. We'll have to wait and see. And then people are pointing out that this is going to be obviously the men, and the KF on the armor is Karl Franz here, the sort of the leader of the men. And then here he uses a magical ability. So in this particular trailer, the magic that this guy wields is very powerful, which is the lore. Some of the people have huge magical abilities, but when it comes to the game, I think CA really needs to baby step it with magic. I think it's already going to be innovative enough to have magic in the game. Don't make it crazy unbalanced and hard for you to manage. Make it like simple magic, everyone can be on board with it, make it do easy stuff. And then, like I said, because they're doing the trilogy, once they nail the baby steps of Warhammer, then they can step it up in the second and third one with access to more and more magic. Now right here at the end of the trailer, you see him starting to get possessed by sort of chaos. And so that's going to be the main, probably, protagonist. Just like in Total War Attila, Attila is kind of the big boss bad guy in the game that everyone's kind of fighting against. That's what they're going to do with this game, presumably, with chaos. And that kind of is what happens with the lore. However, keep in mind that in the lore, it's kind of a gray area in terms of morals. No one is a good guy, no one's a bad guy. It's all kind of grayed out. But it looks like they're going to be going for kind of the boogeymen of chaos to put pressure in the end game, which is what they've done in a lot of titles in the past. So that's pretty cool. And here they're saying, basically, the recap, our rules have changed, so alluding to the fact that they have magic, fantasy, all kinds of different features. And then here you're going to see actually this Sinich priest summoning what looks like a Sinich, I don't know what the technical name is, but it looks like a Sinich demon. And I'll have those guys who know more about the lore talk to us about this later. But yeah, people were saying, cool trailer, I want to see some gameplay before I'm convinced. And then Dogbert basically says, wait for a later date to get actual gameplay. So this has been in development. I think they got the rights to produce the game 2 years ago, so this has been in development for a while, but obviously this is going to take a lot of attention. Now another comment was, yeah, I think I'll skip this one. So justifiably so, a lot of people are skeptical about this game. They're not sure they want to get it. Dogbert in turn replies, that's okay to be skeptical. We strongly recommend you don't buy things you don't think you will like. But however, he says, I hope you'll give it a chance. So I think that's kind of a good recap to the whole video. It's a big step for CA. I hope they kind of baby step it, which it seems they're doing in the right direction with 4 factions. I think that's definitely the way to go. Take it easy. Make sure you explore those in depth. You nail the primary concepts here. You make each race play differently, and then you sort of baby step people into it before you have big leaps and bounds as the trilogy develops. But I think this is a great move. Now the one downside that I wanted to talk about is here we are in the old world, so it's zoomed in. Like I said, you have 4 races to choose from. They're pretty good in the variety, but take a look at the top left. That's going to be most of the factions that you can expect to see overall. And take a look at the ones I circled. Those are the ones that are available. The rest of those, question mark. Are those going to be DLC, or are those going to be in the runner-up games? Are those going to be in the second and third installments? Lizardmen, Dark Elves, Skaven. And someone posted, additional races is the kind of DLC I would gladly pay hand over fist for. I respond to that saying Sega smile intensifies, because you can bet your ass that they are going to charge DLC for this game. There's going to be a lot of DLC for this game. The one redeeming fact for that is take a look at the factions that they are releasing. Greenskins, Empire, Dwarves, Vampire Counts. They're all kind of humanoid. Yes, some are larger, smaller, what have you, but they're all humanoid. If you're going to charge me for DLC, at least in this case, you can't copy and paste it. You can't give me a bunch of Germanic spearmen over and over again. In this case, if the DLC is going to be Lizardmen, if it's going to be Beastmen, there's going to be different character models. And so I feel like DLC is kind of acceptable. They could push it, but at least on some respect, you're going to be paying for something that's not just copy and paste. So that's going to be my final thoughts on it. Hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace out.